Listen to what's happening around the WNBA right now is not just basketball anymore. And if you've been scrolling lately, you've probably felt that shift without even realizing how deep it goes. Because the internet didn't just start watching the WNBA, it started building narratives around it. And that changes everything. Now, every game isn't just a game. It's content. It's a storyline. It's a debate waiting to explode. One highlight doesn't just live on the court anymore. It enters a full digital battlefield within seconds. Clipped, edited, reinterpreted, reposted, and suddenly it's no longer about what actually happened, it's about what people decide it means. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because some moments don't just go viral, they get amplified. And others? They disappear like they never happened at all. Same league, same level of talent, completely different levels of attention. And fans are starting to notice that gap more than ever. Now it feels like there are invisible storylines running alongside every game. Who gets pushed into the spotlight, who gets turned into a headline, who gets turned into a debate, and who gets quietly moved out of the conversation before it even starts. And once you see that pattern, you can't unsee it. Because suddenly you're not just watching players compete, you're watching narratives compete. You're watching the internet fight itself over what the real story of the league even is on any given night. And the wild part? There's no single person controlling it. No official script. No confirmed direction. Just algorithms, audiences, emotions, and momentum all clashing at once, turning every game into something unpredictable. So the real question isn't just what's happening in the WNBA right now. It's who's shaping the story you think you're watching and why it keeps changing right in front of your eyes. And the deeper you look into it, the more you start realizing this isn't just a sports conversation anymore. It's something that feels like a constant battle for attention happening behind every possession, every highlight, every post-game clip that hits the internet. Because what fans are noticing right now is not just who is playing well or who is winning games. It's how fast certain moments rise and how quickly others vanish without leaving a trace. And that difference is what is making everything feel different compared to before. Like the rhythm of attention itself has changed even though the actual game on the court is still the same. And the strange thing is, nobody officially announces the shift. It just slowly becomes visible through repetition. One night a player does something incredible and it spreads everywhere instantly. Full edits, commentary, debates, reactions, all flooding timelines within minutes. Then another night, something equally impressive happens, and it barely moves beyond a small circle of dedicated fans before the next story takes over. And that uneven flow is what people are starting to question more openly now, because it doesn't always match what you would expect if attention was purely based on performance alone. And this is where the internet changes everything, because the WNBA is no longer being consumed as just a league. It is being processed like a stream of content where every moment is judged not only by quality but by timing, personality, narrative potential, and how easily it can be turned into something shareable. And once that happens, the sport stops being just about what happens on the court and starts becoming about what can survive outside of it. And that's where the idea of a narrative war starts to make sense to a lot of viewers, because it feels like different moments are competing for space in the same digital environment, and not all of them are given equal opportunity to grow. Some stories explode naturally, some get pushed by momentum, and some just quietly fade even if they had all the ingredients to become major talking points. And fans are not just watching that happen anymore, they are actively tracking it, comparing it, pointing it out in real time, trying to understand if there is a pattern or if it is just randomness amplified by algorithms. And the more they pay attention, the more examples they start collecting. A dominant performance that trends instantly on one night, followed by another strong performance that barely gets mentioned the next day. A highlight that becomes unavoidable across platforms, followed by another that feels like it never fully enters the mainstream conversation. And when these contrasts happen repeatedly, people naturally start connecting dots, even if those dots don't always lead to a clear conclusion. And in the middle of all of this, players like Sabrina Ionescu become part of the discussion not because of one single moment, but because of consistency. Because consistency is supposed to guarantee visibility in modern sports media, yet fans are noticing that visibility is not always consistent itself. And that contradiction is what keeps pulling her name into larger debates about attention, recognition, and how stories are formed around the league as a whole. And it's important to understand that this isn't about saying anyone is being intentionally ignored or intentionally promoted, because the system is not that simple. It's a mix of audience behavior, platform algorithms, media priorities, and emotional engagement all working together at the same time. But even if nobody is controlling it directly, the outcome still feels structured from the outside. It still feels like some moments are naturally aligned with attention while others have to fight harder just to stay visible. And that feeling is what is changing how people watch the league now. Fans are no longer just reacting to games in real time. They are watching the afterlife of each moment, how long it lasts, where it spreads, how it gets framed, and whether it becomes part of a larger ongoing story or disappears into the noise. And that afterlife is starting to matter almost as much as the game itself, because that is where reputation is being built in real time. And as this keeps developing, the conversation around the WNBA is slowly shifting into something bigger than basketball coverage. It is turning into a discussion about attention economy, digital influence, and how narratives are formed in a world where everything moves faster than explanation. And once that shift fully locks in, every game stops being just a standalone event and starts becoming another piece of a much larger unfolding pattern that fans are still trying to fully understand. And once that pattern becomes impossible to ignore, the entire way people watch the WNBA starts to change in a very noticeable way, because now every possession is not just being judged in the moment, it is being mentally processed through a second layer of thinking that asks what will happen to this clip after the game ends. Will it trend? Will it be pushed? Will it be picked up by bigger pages? Or will it just quietly disappear into the feed? And that kind of thinking wasn't really part of the experience before, but now it is becoming automatic for a lot of viewers. And this is where the narrative war idea gets stronger, because it feels like attention itself has become something that is constantly moving between different players, different games, different moments, almost like a spotlight that never stays in one place for too long unless something forces it to. And fans are starting to notice that certain types of moments seem more likely to hold that spotlight, while others struggle to keep it even when the performance level is clearly high. And the interesting part is that this isn't just happening at the superstar level. It is happening across the board, but it becomes most visible when big names are involved, because expectations are already higher. So when a player like Sabrina Ionescu delivers a strong performance, the expectation is instant dominance in conversation too. But sometimes the reaction feels delayed, fragmented, or quickly replaced by another storyline that takes over the feed. And that mismatch between expectation and reaction is what creates the tension people are talking about. And again, nobody is saying there is a single person or group deciding this, because it doesn't work like that. Instead, it feels like a combination of forces all stacking on top of each other, algorithms deciding what gets boosted, audiences deciding what they engage with, creators deciding what they edit, and media pages deciding what to highlight. And when all of that combines, the end result can look organized even if it is not intentionally structured. And that is exactly why fans are starting to feel like there is a hidden layer to everything they are watching. Not hidden in a conspiratorial way, but hidden in the sense that it operates faster than explanation. A moment happens, the internet reacts, and within minutes the direction of the entire conversation can shift completely. And once you see that happen enough times, it becomes hard not to feel like the flow of attention has its own logic that doesn't always match the flow of the actual game. And this is also why debates online keep escalating instead of settling, because there is no single agreed explanation that everyone trusts. Some people say it is just media cycles, some say it is engagement algorithms, some say it is fan bias, and others say it is pure randomness. But none of those answers fully satisfy what people are observing with their own eyes, which is why the conversation keeps repeating itself in different forms after every major game. And as this continues, the league itself starts to feel like it is being experienced in two parallel ways at once. One version that exists on the court with real competition and real outcomes, and another version that exists online where meaning is constantly being constructed, deconstructed, and reconstructed within hours. And the gap between those two versions is what is making everything feel more intense than usual right now. And the longer this gap exists, the more it shapes how future games are interpreted, because every new moment is now being compared not just to past performances, but to how those past performances were received. And that means attention is no longer just a reaction. It is becoming a reference point that influences the next reaction, creating a loop that keeps feeding itself over and over again. And now that loop is fully in motion, the conversation around the WNBA is no longer just about isolated games or individual performances. It has turned into a continuous storyline that fans feel is unfolding in real time, whether the league intends it that way or not. Because every night adds another layer to what people think they are seeing, and every reaction online becomes part of the next reaction, building momentum in ways that feel almost self-sustaining. And the most interesting part is how quickly perception can shift now, because a single highlight can completely redirect the focus of an entire day, while another equally impressive moment might struggle to break through the noise depending on timing, context, and what else is happening in the sports world at that exact moment. And this is where the sense of unpredictability really grows, because attention doesn't feel fixed anymore. It feels like it is constantly being pulled in different directions by invisible forces that are hard to track, but easy to feel. And fans are becoming more aware of that instability, not in a way that makes them less interested, but in a way that makes them more observant. They are rewatching sequences, checking engagement patterns, comparing how long certain clips take to trend, and noticing how quickly the conversation can move away from one storyline to another without fully finishing the first one. And that unfinished feeling is what keeps the discussion alive long after the games are over. And this is where players like Sabrina Ionescu remain at the center of these conversations, not because she is doing anything different than before, but because consistency in performance now exists alongside inconsistency in attention, and that contrast is what people are trying to understand. When elite output doesn't always guarantee sustained spotlight, it creates questions, and those questions spread faster than answers ever can. And the truth is, there is no simple explanation that fully captures what is happening, because this isn't coming from one place. It is coming from multiple layers of modern sports consumption, all overlapping at once, where algorithms amplify certain moments, audiences decide what resonates emotionally, and media cycles decide what gets packaged into headlines. And when all of that interacts at high speed, the final result can feel like it has direction, even when it doesn't have a single controller. And that is why the idea of a narrative war has stuck so strongly in online discussions, because it captures that feeling of constant competition for visibility, where every moment is trying to survive long enough to become part of the main conversation. And survival here is not just about quality. It is about timing, engagement, and how easily a moment can be transformed into something that spreads beyond its original context. And as this environment continues to evolve, the way fans experience the WNBA is also evolving with it, because they are no longer just watching games in isolation. They are watching patterns form across weeks, tracking how attention moves, and building their own understanding of what gets amplified and what gets left behind. And that makes every new game feel like another piece of a larger puzzle that is still incomplete. And so the real tension now is not just about who wins or loses on the court. It is about how every performance enters the digital ecosystem afterward, how it is framed, how it is shared, and how long it survives before the next storyline takes over. Because in this current landscape, the game doesn't end when the buzzer sounds, it continues in the feed, where the narrative war is still going long after the players have left the court.